Hello, everyone. Just as a heads up, we are recording this session, so if you would not like to be seen, please make sure your camera is off. And we're going to get started in just 1 minute. Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Jackie Phillips, and I serve as the Senior Coordinator for Student Engagement in the Department of Engagement, Leadership, and Service. And I work directly with student organizations, so registration, promotion, and education. We're so excited to have you all join us for today's session with the Student Organization Zoom series. And we're going to be providing an overview of the COVID-19 guidelines for student organizations. I'm also joined by Taylor Kane, the director of ELS, and so I'll allow her to introduce herself.
Hey y'all, like Jackie said, my name is Taylor Kane. I serve as director of the new Department for Engagement, Leadership, and Service. Thank you so much for joining us and for your commitment to continuing to kind of pivot and adapt and be flexible during this time. We certainly appreciate you joining us today. As we go throughout this session, please feel free to throw your questions in the chat box. While Jackie's presenting, I'll be answering questions in the chat box, and we'll also go over them for the sake of the video, so we have the questions and answers also recorded. But if you're dying to get your question out, I'll try and pay attention and get it answered as we go. But thank you again for those of you who are trying to figure out where to find us this year. We're still located in the same space that the Center for Leadership and Service and Center for Student Activities and Involvement were previously housed. So we're on the first and second floor of the Tate Student Center. We look forward to having everyone back this fall, and certainly in trying to find ways to continue to support student organizations and their successful work this year and contribution to campus and the community. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Jackie, and just thank you again for being here.
Yes, thank you, Taylor. And so I am about to share a lot of information giving an overview of the guidelines. However, those have been posted on our website and shared throughout the student involvement listserv. So please make sure to also check the full document and not just the information shared today. So I'm going to be going through each category similar to how the actual document is outlined. And so to start off, safety, decision-making, and personal responsibility. So as a reminder, all faculty, staff, and students are required to self-monitor and acknowledge that they are not aware they have signs or symptoms of COVID-19 prior to coming to campus each day. And in addition, everyone is required to wear an appropriate face covering. And so these face coverings are to be used in addition to social distancing and not as a substitute. But for your organization specifically, we encourage you to review the attendance and participation policies. So to really think about what do these policies need to look like in the fall semester so that everyone's not having to physically be there in person or to not make anyone feel uncomfortable. And so really having a discussion as an executive board or as an organization to set appropriate expectations, and then also remembering to respect individual decisions regarding specific situations. So each of us might have different levels of comfort and might feel comfortable doing different things. So keeping that in mind when really thinking about what is this semester going to look like and what should attendance and participation look like across the organization. For contract tracing, we are asking for all student organizations to maintain updated organization rosters in the involvement network. So when filling out your registration, you already had to update your organization roster by removing any inactive members or anyone that's already graduated. But we're asking that as students join your organization, that you continue updating your roster so that it does have everyone listed that is actively involved in the organization. This can help keep track of who might be attending events in case of an outbreak. We're also asking that you keep track of event participation in the involvement network, and so maybe utilizing the RSVP settings. So there is a way when you're creating an event on the involvement network to limit how many people can attend, and asking them to RSVP ahead of time. And so we will be adding more resources to our website, showing videos of how to do this, and also showing you how to create an event on the Involvement Network. And we'll also include that in a future Zoom series session. But thinking about if you are having an event in person, how many people can be there, and then maybe having them RSVP in advance so that you know, and then as well as that you're able to keep track of who will be in attendance. For campus reservations, all student organizations are encouraged to host meetings online. And so when thinking about what is your event or your meeting or your activities going to look like, maybe utilizing breakout rooms or screen sharing on Zoom to really allow you to still share out information or have individuals engage with one another. And that doesn't always have to be in a large Zoom session like this where everyone's together, but rather figuring out how can we make Zoom work to still host our meetings online. Reservation requests for classroom spaces will become available August 31st. However, that is subject to change. And so keep up to date on CRET's website to find out what dates they'll be allowing reservations for classroom spaces. However, you can already start submitting requests for other spaces on campus, such as in Tate or outdoor spaces. And the updated capacity numbers and room setup types have already been adjusted to meet social distancing guidelines. And you can find out what the room capacity is for each space by visiting CRET's website. And CRET's is Campus Reservations, Events, and Technical Services. And so their website is listed here, which is tate.uga.edu/reserve. And so you can find out how many people can fit in each space by visiting there, in addition to some of their other policies. We are discouraging students from having common food and drink distribution sources at events. So really favoring individually portioned and prepackaged containers. This way everyone's not grabbing from the same plate and that there's not risk of contamination. So really encouraging, if you are gonna have food, to have already individually packaged items so that people aren't necessarily having to share. Additionally, indoor tabling reservations will not be available for the fall. However, CRET's is adding more outdoor tabling spaces and encouraging only 2 people to be at each table at a time. For events, large events will need to follow the institutional plan for large events. This has yet to be released, so CRET is waiting for more additional information and guidance from the institution. And so for any large events, just know that it will need to follow institutional policy. We are encouraging, if you are having an event in person, to really tailor the experience and service to accommodate social distancing practices. And so some of the strategies for doing so is maybe using a larger venue space or open air space that will allow for that flexibility to still have people, but to really give them that 6 feet or more. In addition, offering the same activities multiple times so that you can have smaller groups of people go through your activity. And then also really thinking about what could be supplemented or alternatively delivered through an online experience. And then lastly, configuring those spaces in new ways. So really being creative about how, if we are having this in person, what is this gonna look like and how are we gonna make sure that everyone can be safe and still participate and have a great experience. And then also consider what signage are you gonna be using. Considering having queued lines and then also having individually packaged food. And that could also be catered food. However, no more having homemade goods being brought to these events.
I would really recommend too, Jackie, if I could just interject really quickly. One thing that we've also made sure to kind of make sure that student organization leaders are attuned to is that many of you may be waiting for the reservations to open up from CRETS on August 31st. What I would strongly recommend is that you have a backup plan already in place should your space that you really want is not available. And what I've encouraged even some of the orgs that I directly advise or our department directly advises is to go ahead and institute the backup plan. Go ahead and implement that to plan to be either outside or to be online. And then if a space opens up, you've already got folks that have reserved time on their calendar to be available for whatever it is that you're trying to host, and that maybe you then can use a space in person on somewhere on campus. But please keep in mind that obviously academic spaces are very prime in demand right now because of the social distancing expectations and guidelines. Right now, all event spaces and classroom spaces are capped at 20% capacity. So you can imagine that an event where you'd want to have 100 people in attendance, you would need a room that normally holds 500. And there are very few of those on the University of Georgia campus. So please keep in mind that there may be less availability for spaces that you are used to using. And so I'd strongly recommend to move forward with what your backup plan is, and make that more of your primary plan, and that your backup plan may be the ability to do it in person and in a reservable space on campus.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Taylor. And then in addition to limiting shared food items and having pre-portioned and individually wrapped items, we're really asking for student organizations to limit activities and shared items that require physical contact. And so a good example of this is how oftentimes we have sign-up sheets and shared pens and ask people to sign in at the beginning of an event. So asking individuals to bring their own pens or bring their own items so that we're not sharing and passing things around. Students will also be actively encouraged to self-clean following all events and meetings. And so campus reservations will provide additional information based on the space. And then also we'll be providing some of those supplies, but that will be communicated so that you're aware of for events what that self-cleaning will entail. For any off-campus events or activities, student organizations will be asked to follow current guidelines in place from state and local officials and health leaders. So all laws and all policies do need to be followed. And then also we're encouraging for when advertising these programs, events, or activities, include your contingency plan. So share with folks what other ways it might be delivered if it does need to be canceled due to change in circumstances or anything that comes up. So really thinking through, okay, what is our plan B? And then sharing that out when advertising programs. And then also utilizing the involvement network to promote and manage events. So as previously mentioned, you can keep track of who's attending through the involvement network, but the involvement network can also be used to promote the event and share it out with different audiences, such as the whole UGA community or students or just those in your organization. A lot of questions we've been receiving involve recruitment. So a good question of how can we recruit members during these times that we're living in? And so as a reminder, all student organization recruitment activities will need to adhere to current social distancing guidance. And so our office usually puts on a large scale involvement fair in person at the beginning of the semester. We still will be having an involvement fair and there will still be opportunities to table. However, it will be done virtually. And so our involvement fair will be taking place on September 3rd, and more details will be sent out in the student involvement listserv. But it will be held through the involvement network, and there will be opportunities to sign up and have a virtual table to share information about your organization and to chat with students that might be interested in joining. We also encourage you to update your organization information on the involvement network. So make sure you have the contact information listed, the email address listed is up to date, so that if students have questions and want to join or learn more, that they're reaching out to the correct person. Also utilizing the involvement network forms, and you can use that for signups or interest forms or applications. So really having it all in one place and easy for students to find as they're searching the involvement network for different organizations based on keyword. And then also highlight members and membership experiences on social media. So using that to your advantage to really show students what it's like to be a part of your organization and what your organization's purpose is in order to help recruit members that way as well. For engagement in community buildings, we encourage you to really think about different creative ways to still have social interaction within your organization, even through virtual settings. So having fun Zoom backgrounds, having different themed meetings, so asking everyone to dress up in a theme, playing online games, doing icebreakers, but finding fun ways to do that, even if you're meeting through Zoom. Also encouraging y'all to think about opportunities to collaborate with other organizations. So maybe hosting a meeting together, doing some virtual community service together towards a common purpose, but finding different ways to collaborate with other orgs through meetings and other projects that you're working on. Sharing information out to your organization members, so different campus resources, so what's happening on campus, different events, making sure to send that out through your own listservs or through your own GroupMes so that membership is aware of the different things campus is doing and that UGA is doing to really make the fall semester as great as it can be and also to keep their safety in mind. We also encourage creating pairs or mentorship programs. So thinking of ways, how can you pair people up to get to know each other more on a one-on-one or a smaller setting? And then also ways for them to really create that same level of engagement in different ways. And so they could meet maybe in person and do a social distant activity, or meet through FaceTime or through Zoom as well, but finding ways to really pair people up so that they're still getting those intentional connections within your organization. Also consider establishing an outreach team, so a way to check in on members within the organization, so to see how they're doing, if there's any resources they need to be connected to. So thinking about, could maybe a position do that or a committee of people, but thinking about how are you going to be checking in on your members, and then also referring students to student care and outreach if need be, if they're experiencing any hardships or have any questions. For retreats, we're also encouraging student organizations to host retreats virtually. So really thinking about how can we have our retreat via Zoom or an online platform. And so utilizing breakout rooms, once again, to have more intentional, smaller conversations. And those can be done through breakout rooms or setting up different Zoom meetings. And then also making sure you're building in breaks to minimize Zoom fatigue. So thinking about what other social components can be incorporated, but we're really encouraging these to be done virtually, since retreats usually occur over an extended amount of time and not having folks in person for really long periods of time. So figuring out ways to still get to know one another and share information, but doing it through Zoom or other virtual platforms. For fundraising, once again, food that is not prepackaged and individually packaged is not encouraged. And so for student fundraising activities that involve food, they will not be approved unless it is prepackaged. So I know in the past, a lot of organizations have done bake sales and have sold homemade goods. Unfortunately, for the fall semester, those requests will not be able to be approved. And so we are encouraging fundraising to occur online, so that the exchange of money and items is occurring online rather than in person. And then, as always, fundraising requests do need to be submitted through the involvement network for approval. For travel, once again, all students and organizations need to follow current guidance in place from state and local officials. And if travel is absolutely necessary, we encourage traveling independently rather than using shared vehicles or carpooling. So for communication and marketing, very similar to recruitment, we encourage you to utilize the involvement network, and then also utilizing the resources from our office, engagement, leadership, and service. And so you are able to submit announcement requests to our student involvement listserv, which is sent out weekly. And so the link to send a request is located on the front page of the involvement network. And so definitely submit upcoming events, submit different opportunities to get involved, and we'll be happy to include that. And that goes out to over 6,000 students. Those that sign up, and then also presidents and other secondary contacts of organizations. So that's a really easy and great way to share out information to a large population of the UGA community. We also encourage you to utilize the involvement network to post organization news. And so this allows you to choose different audiences and shows up as a news announcement on the involvement network. So another opportunity to share out event information or share out different recruitment ways to get involved. And then once again, utilizing social media platforms, and then also considering tools such as Hootsuite to schedule posts ahead of time. For teamwork and project management, figuring out what tools work best for your organization. So utilizing tools like Slack and GroupMe to communicate outside of meetings. So finding other ways to stay connected, to stay engaged, and to talk about different tasks, and then also to continue getting to know one another. And there's also lots of great online tools to manage large projects and communicate. So those can be like Asana or other ones that work best for your organization. And you can also connect Slack to many of these. But figuring out what works best for your membership and how you want to communicate, but streamlining that process. For finances and budgeting, really taking time to look at what financial risk there might be. So considering measures in place should services be unavailable due to COVID. So taking a look at your budget and what other contracts you might have, and taking a look at what is still feasible with COVID-19. And then also thinking about what promotional items and marketing materials are needed, and whether or not they can be passed out safely. And then thinking about what is that appropriate number to order in order to make the best use of your budget and your funds. And then for officer elections and transition, really once again, utilizing the involvement network, you can host organization elections through the involvement network, through your organization page. And then we also have officer transition resources available on the ELS website to kind of talk about how to best transition from one officer to the other. So transition guides and things of that sort to really prepare the next officers for your organization as they take over, but being able to do that through the involvement network and through other ways. There's also some other additional resources. So as mentioned a lot, the involvement network, that's involve.uga.edu. So really making sure to keep your organization page up to date, adding events, adding information for potential members, and really using that to share out information to the UGA community. Then you can also use it internally for your organization to keep track of documents and keep track of communication. So really going and exploring that and checking out the guides that we have of how to navigate the involvement network. Make sure to opt into the student involvement listserv if you haven't already. Here is the bit.ly for that, which is bit.ly UGA involvement listserv. So opting in, submitting requests, and sharing out that information. We're going to be continuing this Zoom series throughout the rest of the summer and into the fall semester. And so this upcoming Monday, we're going to be having a session on utilizing Zoom for student organization operations. So you can join us to learn more about how to use breakout rooms and how to live stream and all of the different features that Zoom has to really be able to host different events and meetings. And then all of these Zoom sessions are recorded and will be posted on our YouTube. And then if you have any different topics or ideas that you would like us to discuss or have roundtables about, please send those ideas our way to ugaels@uga.edu. I know there's been some questions in the chat box throughout. As I mentioned, this was a brief overview of the guidelines. There's more examples and more information located in the actual document. But if you have any other questions, feel free to send those in the chat and we'll answer them. Or you can unmute yourself to ask us as well.
So the first question that I believe PJ asked was, are outdoor tabling spaces already available for reservation? And to my knowledge, they are. And we can double check on that for y'all and confirm it when we do the follow-up email. But we did have a campus reservations, events, and technical services presented. Our first Zoom series is already available on our website if you want to go back and view that. And then Hannah asked, what outdoor areas are available for events this semester on campus? She doesn't see it on the reservations site. The outdoor spaces that I am currently aware of, and they should all be, and while I'm talking and we get our next question, I'll look it up online and I'll link to where all the spaces are listed. Legion Field is a reservable space outdoors. Obviously the lawns around the Tate Student Center, so West Lawn, which is where the flagpole is out front of Tate. There's the what is that, South Lawn. Sorry, I was trying to do my directions in my head. There's the South Lawn that's on the back side of Tate where all that patio furniture above the parking garage is located. That's a reservable space. I believe that furniture has been moved to a different location for now, but I will have to check to see if it's still going to be put out during the school year. But additional outdoor spaces, Hurdy Field over up on North Campus where the fountain is an outdoor space that is reservable. And so I'll work to find that list on campus. Jackie, can you get the next question while I'm looking?
The next question was, is there an extra step we should take if we have guests that aren't UGA students attending our meetings in person? So ensuring that you are still following these guidelines and ensuring that you're following local and state guidelines as well. Taylor, do you have any additional information on guest policies for the fall semester?
Yeah, I think the big thing to keep in mind is that anyone that comes to campus will also be expected to follow the guidelines that UGA and the University System of Georgia have put out. So just because you're not a student here or you don't teach here or you're not a staff member here, if you are on our campus, you are expected to also wear a face mask inside university buildings where social distancing is not possible. Or not always possible, but that's important to keep in mind, to remind your guests and non-UGA community members that they still have to follow the guidelines that are set in place. I think that's going to be the big key point, is to make sure you're keeping up open communication and allow them to reach out and ask questions when keeping in mind. I would also, as much as you can, and you're going to hear us talk about this probably until you're sick of it, we really encourage you to have your meetings and your events done online. I know that it is not potentially the same experience that you are used to or would expect or would like to have. But I think that is probably the easier way to limit risk, to lower the risk for your members, for community members who may be attending events online. You mitigate a lot of risk when you're doing it via digitally and virtually, rather than all trying to fit into a space somewhere on campus, which I think makes it more accessible as well. It may not be the preferred method, but it's certainly what will continue to recommend. And then you have less that you're having to communicate to folks around what to expect if they have to come in person.
Mm-hmm. And I think in addition to keeping track of what student members are in attendance at your events and meetings, making sure to keep track of if you are having guests, who's there, and making sure you're including that in your event attendance. And then over the next few sessions, we're going to be talking about different engaging ways, even with having virtual events. So while may not be the ideal method, we'll be talking about different ways to ensure that those are still engaging and interactive, and how to really use these different online platforms to be able to host those in a way that may not be the exact same as in person, but still providing an opportunity to come together and have discussions or to meet one another.
For Hannah's question about the outdoor spaces that were available, I just put in the chat box a link to Tate's pricing page. If you scroll down and click on the Tate Student Center and Memorial Hall available options for reservations, you'll see a list of additional spaces, and that gives you all the reservable spaces from the campus reservations office. It doesn't list out all of the exact academic spaces across campus. That list, as you might imagine, is very long, but it still gives you a general idea of how much everything costs. But that, to me, was the cleanest list that had all the indoor and outdoor reservation or reservable spaces on it. Are there any other questions from folks? All right. Well, we just want to thank you again for hopping on here. We know that everyone is hopefully looking forward to a semester, no matter what it looks like. And we're really excited to see, one, the creativity and innovation of student organizations as they pivot to a more virtual or online experience. And we have full confidence that you all are still going to be successful and continue to make a positive impact on campus and in the community. And we're really excited to see how we can help you fulfill your mission and purpose, and continue to find ways to be strategic and to move forward. And please let us know how we can continue to support and help you. Again, we're located on the first and second floors of the Tate Student Center, right off of the parking lot entrance from the Tate Student Center. And our email address is here on the screen, ugaels@uga.edu. Our office reopens next week on Thursday, the 13th. But our phone number, also so that you have it, is 706-542-6396. So if we can help you at all, please let us know. And we look forward to seeing you this fall, whether it's here on screen or in person with a mask on our faces. We are excited to have everyone back and to see y'all soon. So please let us know how we can continue to support and help you.
Thanks, y'all.